All right, good afternoon, everybody. So my talk is a little bit about how we went from the rake to the flower and how we radically changed our entire organizational structure and why we changed it and what the process was and what we're learning from it and how it's making a real difference in the way that we engage with our community. So first, a little bit about the Oakland Museum of California. We are in downtown Oakland, and we're a pretty unique institution in that we are multi- and interdisciplinary. We are focused on the art, history, and natural sciences of California. And we are in this incredible building. It is a landmark building that integrates outdoor and indoor space. It really is envisioned by our founding architect, Kevin Roach, as somewhere between a town square and a park. He really had that concept of a third space in 1969. So I just want to have you picture what the Bay Area and Oakland was in 1969. It was a pretty revolutionary place, and this was really founded in a kind of revolutionary way as a museum of the people. So we've had some conversations here about the Black Panthers here at this conference, and in 1969, right across the street at the Alameda County Courthouse, the Black Panthers were on trial, and we were opening a museum. So fast forward about 40 years, and the museum was founded as a city museum, and it always had this very strong civic mission. It was always seen as an educational resource, and it had done groundbreaking work in community engagement and community programming, but it had gotten a little sleepy in that time period. So in 2006, we started a process of physical transformation, and we launched a capital campaign, and we tried everything new in the way of reinstalling 90,000 square feet of gallery space. We brought the visitor to the center of that experience. We worked with our exhibit development teams in whole new ways. We defined whole new processes, created new roles, and we had an amazing success at transforming the institution physically. So we reopened after a period of closure and after about 4 years of enhancing the building, renovating the building. It was May 2010. We were out on the street. We were having this fabulous celebration. And on the very same day, the city of Oakland was proposing 20% cuts to all of the city departments, of which the museum was one. So by this point, we were operating as a public-private partnership. We're about a $13 million budget, about 100 staff. 45% of those staff members, including me, including curators and registrars and educators, as well as security and gardeners and custodians, were city employees. The other half of our operation was overseen by the Oakland Museum of California Foundation, which had overseen our capital project, and the other 55% of our budget and our staff were private nonprofit employees. So our city funding was really focused either in the building, the city owns our building, or the staff. So a 20% cut meant devastating our staff. And what we began to see is this could be a process in the midst of this grand success with our transformation of our physical space. It could have been the death by 1,000 cuts. So on this very day that we were opening, we went to the city council and we said, we think we can save the city money, but we're going to have to radically change the way we work together. So there's a beautiful picture, isn't it? That is, it is not an artist's installation. That was our old org chart. So there's the rake. And how we were organized traditionally was in, first of all, as the 3 museums of art, history, and science that we had been founded as 40 years before. We were further bifurcated by city staff and foundation staff. I don't know if you can see that, but the city staff are in rectangles and the foundation staff are in octagonals. So this is, there were some things that were pretty classically structured in terms of museums, a marketing department, curatorial departments, development departments. But then we had kind of 3 mini museums as our different disciplines. And then we had 2 budgets, 2 personnel systems, 2 benefit structures, 2 governance bodies. And you can't see, but there was a director at the top, and that person was schizophrenic because of all of this. So we began this negotiation with the city of Oakland to say, what would this look like to really change our structure? And the city, because of union contracts and its charter, said, well, the only way we can do this is to go out of the museum business. we're going to turn over all operations to the foundation. We did work out a 10-year grant agreement and a long-term lease, but they essentially said, we will turn over the full operation to the nonprofit. But of course, that means we're going to lay off all city staff. And because of the union contracts, your staff is going to get 6 months of notification of potential layoff. So this was a terrifying moment in November of 2010, because we realized that this was going to be a huge change in every way we had operated for more than 40 years. But then we kind of had this light bulb go off, which was, this is a chance to reinvent an institution from scratch. So I want to just take one moment here to talk about the process of change, because when this kind of really dawned on me that we could do this, there are two ways we could have done this. I could have gone back with some board members in my office and come out and said, here's our new organization. Or we could actually try to really live the principles that we lived as part of our physical transformation, which were around transparency and communication and input. So I did a lot of studying of change processes, and this process is actually one that John Cotter talks about in the Harvard Business Review and has since written books about. And we were very deliberate and very intentional about what this process was going to be, and it starts with establishing a sense of urgency. If people don't really believe you need to change and they're not motivated to change, you're really having an uphill battle. Well, in our case, we knew we were going to have to change. Forming a guiding coalition, I won't go through all of this, but I think there are a couple of key parts, which is you do need leadership throughout the institution. You do need to create a vision for that, and of course, then you need to keep at it. But this change process was something that we kept very front and center through our process. So there's the flower. So during this process, we engaged our staff, we had different working teams, we worked with our board, and in June of 2011, we rolled out this new organizational chart. And the idea of this was to no longer work in the traditional silos of the museum, but we created these 6 cross-functional centers. And again, a lot of this was the way we were working in terms of cross-functional, cross-disciplinary teams as part of our physical transformation, and we tried to then embed that into the very structure of the museum. So I know you can't probably see this, but the 6 centers are the Audience and Civic Engagement Center, the OMCA Lab, which brought together curatorial staff with what we call experienced developers and evaluators, the Resource and Enterprise Center, the Creative Production Center, the Collections and Information Access Center, and the Institutional Support Center. And get a couple of our staff, we have great acronyms. We have the CIA, we have ACE. But a lot of the work, we deliberately put together these cross-functional teams with different kinds of skills, sometimes that had been departments that had actually worked in kind of, if not antithesis, at least not in close coordination. But now all of our work is drawn like exhibition teams and program teams, drawing from all 6 centers, or at least usually 3. And you'll see now the board is at the bottom, the director's at the bottom, supporting the organization. So I just want to mention a couple of the new positions we created. We did create positions that had never existed in our city structure. And I want to just say some of those job descriptions were 30 years old. And we had no in-house IT. We had no in-house facilities. So we created brand new positions. And during that summer, because the city staff were actually laid off, we were all laid off on a specific day. So we rolled out this interview process. We rewrote every job description, close to 100 job descriptions, and rolled this out over a period of several weeks. I mean, some people would say we're still rolling it out, and that's true. But we did about 90 interviews in a 6-week period. I will say every former city staff person had to interview, and any position that had major change, which included most of the nonprofit positions, went through an interview process. So it was as much about organizational, cultural change as it was about structural change. And on that, I just have to highlight the change cycle. It's like the grief cycle. We spent a lot of time in those early phases, and we were trying really hard to get past the danger zone. But we really learned this is it's a difficult process. We had people who weren't ready to go through the change cycle. We had people who wanted to get there very quickly. So it was a significant period of change that really is still ongoing. So we're now, let's see, we're a little over 2 years past that moment. And is it making a difference? Is it changing the way we are working? And I would argue that it really is. This is, believe it or not, this is an exhibition, installation, or in-gallery exhibition. We recently opened a major exhibition on the San Francisco Bay, the first ever museum exhibition on the Bay, coinciding, thank goodness, with the opening of the Bay Bridge. And as of today, the reopening of BART and the BART strike being over. But this was an example of our work underway. It's a multidisciplinary exhibition, a team of art, history, and science staff. It really does bridge the cultural and the environmental heritage of California, but looks to its future. We worked with multiple community partners. We did extensive evaluation and community input. So now we're really seeing the fruits of our labor in this way. So where are we now? The Museum of the Future. What I would say is that we're still learning. We're really working on building this kind of innovation into our systems and processes. We got the structure, I think, but we're still working on a lot of the kind of ways we really work together, the various processes. We're trying to build some of this great innovation that's been in our physical spaces and in our programmatic areas into our business practices, our fundraising practices. But we're still very much learning. And I just want to end by saying I think a lot of what we've talked about in terms of listening and prototyping is as true for recreating your structure. We really tried to listen to our staff. We really tried to learn from our experiences. And we rolled out the flower as a prototype. And we said some of this may work, and we've already tweaked lots of job descriptions and moved positions from one center to the other. But we really tried to live in our restructuring the values that we had put forth in our work with our community and in transforming the museum in other ways as well. So thank you very much.